Welcome back to Lisa's Family Table. Today, I am so excited to share with you one of my husband's favorites. Now, I know I always say they're my husband's favorite, but this one in particular, he absolutely loves. This is a Northern Italy specialty. So when you think about Osso Buco, which is what we're going to make today, depending on whether you're Northern Italy or Southern Italy, it'll either have tomatoes or no tomatoes. So Northern Italy is just made with stock. And I had always made it with tomato because that's what I grew up with. And when I was going over to Italy, because my son studied over there, we went to Milan and we took a class on this particular dish. And so I'm sharing with you the recipe that we learned while we were there. And we're going to pair it with a risotto Milanese. So this is completely a Milan style dish. And we're working with these veal shanks. And you can see they're about 1.5 inches, probably 2 inches thick. I got these from the butcher shop. Veal is sometimes difficult to find. We love the butcher shop in Pensacola because they ship directly to your house. The recipe calls for 4 of these. I'm going to do 2 today because it is a large portion. I've made my own meat stock and the recipe is attached below. And what we did was we took some beef bones and some chicken wings and some aromatics, and we just cooked that down over a long period of time yesterday. And I've got that on the stove here. So when you're making a dish that's really simple in terms of all of its components, it's so important that you have the very best ingredients, because the goal here to make this dish everything that it should be is to build beautiful flavor profiles. One thing I do want to point out is in the recipe, we call for putting some bone marrow in here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of the bone marrow out of the middle of the shank here because that's fat and that's yet another level of flavor. So we're going to put some butter. I'm going to put the bone marrow in there. That's going to be wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and make the Gremolata first. So let's begin. The dish calls for a couple tablespoons of parsley, which I have here. I've already chopped it. It's finely chopped. And I got my lemon in there. And then an anchovy fillet, which I have. And so we're just going to kind of finely dice this. And honestly, if you're really adverse to the anchovy, truly you can skip this if that's your thing. You don't really want to do it. Just adding the lemon and the herbs is still going to lift the flavor of this dish. So don't let the anchovy, if that's your aversion, prevent you from adding the herbs. And the anchovy actually kind of will melt into the dish, which is another thing. So it's not like you're going to get a big chunk of it. I'm going to stir it in the bowl here first. Okay. And then get a zester. Just, microplane. I've already washed the outside of the lemon because, they sit in the produce section. So I wash my citrus when I get it home and just zest it in here. It's probably easier for me when I zest like this where it's on the top and I can spill it over. I can kind of see how much zest I'm putting in. And then we're just going to put this in our dish here. Use our spoon here to kind of scrape all that goodness. All the oil from the lemon is in this zest, and so it just adds so much flavor. You'll be amazed at how much flavor this will add to the dish. And we're just going to stir it up and combine it. And I'm just going to put it over here in this bowl, and we're going to save it for later. And as I said, that's just going to be a stir-in topping. It's going to just add so much flavor. I can't wait for you to see how that comes together. I wish you were here so you could taste it. Okay. So now we've got our shanks. I did pat them dry earlier. There's a couple things we want to do. So like if you look at the outside of these shanks, you'll see that they have this skin on here. And so what we want to do is we want to cut that in a couple different places. And the reason that we do that is to prevent the shank from curling up when you cook it. So we're just going to kind of go in and give a couple cuts to it. Don't cut like through it, the shank, just get through that silver skin. I'm doing like 3 spaces on each of these. Okay, so those are done. I'm going to do this one too. So I've just kind of cut those, and then that'll prevent my meat from curling up in the plate, in the pan when it's cooking. Okay, so now we're going to take our LSR, Lisa's Steak Rub. Because of the mixture of this and the balance of it, it really complements this dish perfectly. So you go up high, season it, both sides. You eat both sides of your food, season all of it. And then we're just going to go ahead and bring our heat up on our pan, put our butter in. Okay. And As I mentioned before, we're going to go ahead and get some of this bone marrow out of here, because that bone marrow, it's going to come out when it cooks anyway, so you're not destroying any integrity of this. It's just that this is fat and it's deliciousness, and it's going to add so much extra flavor to this. So you want to take that bone marrow and just put it in there. Okay? All right, so that's melting. We're just going to brush. This is just all-purpose flour, and I just did it in a paper plate because I hate doing dishes. And the flour also helps to kind of bring the stock, the sauce up a little bit, and add a little bit of viscosity to it, a little substance to it. So that's another reason why you want to do that. Okay, we're coming up to heat. We're going to mesh our bone marrow in there. We don't want this to get too hot because we don't want to burn our butter. Okay. Now the recipe calls for half of a red onion. So I'm going to put a little bit of this. I'm going to put about half of this because I cut up the red onion. I'm going to start off by that. It's building flavors. More. Combining that with that bone marrow, because that's going to, you'll be surprised that that small amount will bring just another component of flavor to this dish. So we're just going to get these until they're translucent, and then we're going to push them off to the side, and we'll put the shanks in there, and we're just looking to get a good sear on the shanks, after which I'm going to throw them in the oven. And again, this is a perfect dish that you can do on the stovetop or oven. Really depends on your preference. My oven is preheated to 375. Okay, so now we're going to move these onions over, get our shanks in there. Kind of push them to the side when you put the shank in there. Press it down, because our goal is to get a good sear. Okay, and resist your desire to flip these over. Let them sit and get a good color on them. You might have to move. My pan's a little hot here. Move your pan around so your onions don't burn. You're going to kind of play. This is like play with your food time. Smells really good already. We're going to probably 2 or 3 minutes on this side. Turn it over, 2 or 3 minutes. Ladle our stock in and straight into the oven. And then we're going to make our risotto Milanese. Now, risotto Milanese, what it is it's a saffron-based stock. So we're going to use the stock that we made earlier from this dish in the risotto, and we're going to put some saffron in it. And it's an expensive spice, but you don't use a lot. You're just using a pinch. It gives it that beautiful golden yellow color. And we're going to serve that alongside with this. And if you were in Milan, that's where we're taking you. We're taking you to Milan today. That's exactly how they would serve it. Perfect. Just enough to kind of seal that. Get a little color on that flour. And we're going to give it another minute. We don't want to go too far here. Cooking is intuitive, and the reason I don't want to go too far is because I don't want my onions to be all charred. That's good. And now that the bottoms had time to sear, I'm going to go ahead and bring my stock over. And we're going to go ahead and ladle that in here. And you can see it's pretty clear. The way that you get a clear stock is when you put everything in the pot, you don't stir it a bunch. The idea is to put it on a very low temperature and let it sit all day, and then you strain it through a fine mesh strainer. Okay. There we go. And then we're just going to put the top on it, and it's going to go directly in the oven. Okay? Perfect. We will come back in a couple of hours when we pull that out of the oven, and we'll go ahead and start our risotto at that time. Welcome back to Lisa's Family Table, everybody. I'm so excited. I have just taken our Osso Buco out of the oven. It looks and smells wonderful. So just to finish it, all we really need to do is we're going to do our risotto. I don't really measure a lot of things when I make risotto because the technique is what you want to focus on. The number one thing on risotto is the right rice, right? So this is a rice that's special for risotto. Now, if you can't find it in the US because it is difficult, you can use arborio rice. It's a good choice. You want a very starchy rice. The beauty of the risotto is that as the rice cooks and the starch is released, it becomes super creamy. So to begin this, again, it's about the technique. There are some basic ingredients. I'm going to start with some extra virgin olive oil. Use a good quality one. We're not gonna get so hot here that we're worried about this oil becoming bitter. And there's some basics. You use some aromatics. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put some shallot in there. I like shallot. You can put some red onion. I don't recommend a yellow or white onion, but either red onion or shallot are great. You can also put a little garlic. I'm making this with my Osso Buco and I'm putting saffron in it, so I'm omitting any kind of garlic. If you're gonna put garlic, in Italy, they don't put a lot of garlic. I think a lot of people think that. But what they would do is they would crush a whole garlic clove and they would stir it in the oil and make the oil aromatic pull it out. So if you wanted that flavor, go ahead and do it. So what we're doing is we've got our shallot in here and we really just want to kind of get it translucent, a little aromatic, and put a little salt. When I cook onions of any sort, and a shallot is from the onion family, I like to put a little salt in it because it helps it release its water, helps it to caramelize a little bit. I'm not looking to put any color on these because that's not the purpose of this risotto, but I am wanting them to get a little translucent, which means clear. And as soon as I get that, then I'm going to put my rice in. This is actually quite a lot of rice. I probably won't do this. Basically, it's my handful, 2 of these per serving. So if you're, cooking for, 4 people, you would do 8 kind of palmfuls is a general rule of thumb. I mean, if you're making it an entree and it's your main dish, you could probably put a little more, but we're going to have other things with this. Again, I'm being careful not to get color on them because I really want this to have a really clean, that beautiful golden color that comes with the saffron. Okay, now I'm going to put my rice in. What the heck, right? And I tell you also, you never go hungry. So my rice is doing great. I'm really watching my temperature. I don't want my rice to brown, but I'm kind of wanting to see, like the little rice, I'm wanting to see it come a little clear on the edges, just a smidge. And then I'm going to shock it with some wine. So it's time for the splash of wine. I can see a little color. You can hear, I'm on about a medium-low heat here. I'm adjusting. And I put about 1/4 of a cup, maybe 1/3 of a cup of wine in. Again, it's about the technique. I'm going to let this evaporate. And then it's a ladle at a time. Our goal is to have a creamy risotto. We don't want to overcook it. We get a little stock in here. And I've strained this stock, if you'll recall from earlier, because I don't want to have to fight to not put the vegetables we need in here. So I'm putting about 1.5 ladles in here. And just gently stir it to help release those starches. You don't want to be too hot because you want the rice to have time to do that. And if you could just, see over the top of it here, you can see it's already really starchy. You can see the creaminess of it. So what I'm going to do now while I'm letting that first ladle of broth get happy in there, I'm going to get my saffron. And you can see this is not a lot that comes in here. It is a pricey herb, but the good news is this will last. I mean, you don't use a lot of it. And some people don't like a lot of it, so you have to be careful to not overdo it. So I'm just basically doing probably 1/4 teaspoon is what I would call that. If I had this stock that was dedicated just to my rice, I would probably put the saffron in that and let it have more time to bloom. Bloom meaning have all the colors come out in it. In terms of stock, you want to plan probably a 2-to-1 ratio on your rice. You may not use it all, but just in terms of making sure you have enough of the stock to complete the rice dish. And I'm doing this because I'm really trying to get more and more starch. Can I see here? Look how creamy it is. But you can tell the rice hasn't disintegrated, right? There's still rice. I can tell it's rice. Now, put some Parmesan Reggiano in it that I've already grated. And I grated this fresh. I don't really like to buy my stuff pre-grated, but that's entirely up to you. Turn my heat off because I'm going to put butter in a minute. When you add dairy to stuff, it's better to have the heat off because it can separate or curdle. We don't want that, so I always say, why not a little more cheese? Okay, my other tasting spoon I'm going to use for my butter. Can I say voila? It's so beautiful. It's really exactly how I would want it to be. It does need that lemon that I talked about. Just a little squeeze. You don't want to, oops, a little for your counter too. It helps everything. It sanitizes. Set this in the back. I'm going to bring my Osso Buco back over. We're going to open it up. Now, we've got our Gremolata that we had talked about. You just kind of sprinkle it around, right? I'm gonna get a clean spoon out of my drawer. And you're just stirring that into the broth. Okay, I'm gonna do some plating here. I'm gonna plate a couple things. I wanna plate the dish as I would plate it, but I also wanna plate a little bit separate of the risotto so you can see that separate. See it in the center of the bowl, of the plate here. And I'm gonna get a napkin because I made a mess, but it's not supposed to be firm like a rice dish. It's supposed to be a little on the loose side. It should redistribute, right? I'm not looking to mold that because if I've done that, then I have not made it properly. That's what you're looking for. That is what risotto should be. I have really gotten to enjoy these edible flours. I get these boxes from Farmer Lee Jones. I'm happy to put the link below because they put them in their vegetable boxes. I'm gonna put the purple one right in the middle, just like that. Because you do eat with your eyes, right? I think that's all I'm gonna do. I don't think it needs anything more. So there's your risotto. The way that I would traditionally, and that would be traditionally plated while you're in Italy, is you would take this beautiful risotto Milanese. I'll try not to make a mess with this one. You would do the similar thing where you're just kind of mounting some on there. And depending on where you're at, they ask you, do you want it with the bone marrow? Because it's a richer dish. And this is so tender. I'll do it this way first. Okay. I want to put my bone back in just because I think it looks pretty. I'm putting it in this way because I want the bone marrow to shine through. Like that. You can see that Gremolata looks so pretty, and we're gonna put this sauce over the top of it. That's what you want. This dish is just incredible. This dish is perfect. And of course, you don't have to do the edible flours. It's just really having fun with your food. So that's my risotto Milanese and my Osso Buco, bringing a little bit of Milan to us. Since we all can't travel right now, we can travel virtually or in our memories, and I wanted to bring this memory to all of you. So from my table to yours, thank you for coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you can get notification of our upcoming videos. We post every Thursday, and you won't want to miss a single video.